If you could send a message to your younger self 10 years ago, what would you say and why?
I would have told myself it's going to be okay.
Ooh.
I would tell myself that. I would tell myself that I had nothing to worry about. I would tell myself the thoughts I wasn't crazy. You know, the things that, you know, go through your mind when you are trying to create something that is not present. Yeah. And so the interesting thing about it is that I don't necessarily have a love for culinary. And so what people, the misconception is that people believe that I'm a chef. But no, that's not the side of it that I fell in love with. I fell more in love with, I'm a businessman. Now, this is in a point where this is the recession happening. I'm hemorrhaging money like crazy, and I'm trying to save this restaurant. I had to close that restaurant down. So that put a taste in my mouth that I didn't quite, I'm be honest with y'all, I started to question God in this moment.
Yeah.
I started to, because I didn't understand the why. I only had 5,000 when I needed 300,000. You made that possible. You had me blow up. You had me win all these accolades. You had me do this. You had me do that. And you yanked the rug out from under me. What was that for? And then on top of that, I was this young 24-year-old, African-American trying to pull it off. And I had nobody around me. When we talk about mentors, you have to realize at that moment, I had outgrew my mentors. So I want to use my platforms to create exposure and access for people that look very specifically like me. When you're just marching down the street and you're unorganized, you don't have an entity, you don't have equity, you don't have these very important things, the don't matter if it's 1 million people on the street. The voice is quiet, but if we got ownership, so we own parts of downtowns, and we have this, we have that, we have our own schools, we have this and this and that. Now we have our own chamber of commerces. Now our voice is now weighted a lot differently. There was nothing like what I was wanting to do or what I was patronizing in bigger cities. In this market, I had the entrepreneurial background, and then I was in the hospitality industry. So it was just like, okay, well, if I see the hole, if somebody's gonna do it, who's gonna do it? I guess it's gonna be me, and I seen it crystal clear. So for people to see how, man, you're smacking where everything's happening right now. How did you work yourself into that position? And I'm like, I seen it 20 years ago, and I was just willing to, despite what was happening, in those 20 years, I just stayed steadfast in what I knew. I think when we're young, we have this wild, interesting imagination, right? Yeah. We're very creative. We believe that we can do anything. And I think that the older we get, we let life kind of tell us how things should be. And I would encourage and challenge people to never give up on the child in them, the kid in them, because that in itself is where it's going to take you to where you need to be. Man, I've had plenty of businesses throughout these 20 years that I thought was going to be multi-million-dollar concepts that wind up folding up. It's not about, you coming up with something and you automatically being successful. That's not what it's about. It's about becoming.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is your boy Kendrick, and welcome to another episode of Talks with Ken. This is the place where motivation lives, inspiration thrives, and personal growth resides. I am so happy to have you guys in the building, and I hope you guys have a pen and pad available that you can take down some notes. And I'm telling you right now, you do not want to miss this. It's going to be some gems that this brother's going to be dropping today. And I'm so happy and elated to have him on the show. Well-versed in many facets, wear many hats, and it continue to operate at a high level and function at a high level in each of them. So without further ado, I want to introduce you to today's guest, Jay Tolbert. Jay, what's going on, man?
Hey, man, living the dream, brother. Living the dream.
Look, I know you are. Even though I don't see you, in past, and I see what you got going on, and I love it. And I can't wait for the viewers to be a part of this conversation that we're going to have today. We got some things to ask today, so I'm going to get right to it. Who is Jay Tolbert?
That's a good question, man. I don't like to talk about myself, man.
I know you don't. And most individuals such as yourself don't. That's okay. I'm going to talk about you.
Yeah. I think I would start off by saying, I'm a God-fearing man. I guess I would start everything that I do. A lot of people ask me how I'm able to do what I do. I
Mhm.
would say that everything I do is through Him. I'm just a vessel that's out here doing the work that He put me here to do. So I like to start there. From there, I'm a family man. Second, I have 3 kids. Got 2 girls and a boy, and a wife, and so I'm a family man. Like to hang out with them when I get a moment. But then third, what they would call a serial entrepreneur. Have my hands in quite a bit of things that's going on, not only in Spartanburg but in the upstate as a whole, and so that keeps me quite busy.
Man, Jay, what do you feel at this moment? What is your mission? What is the mission that you want?
I think the my overall goal is to I have been fortunate over the years to have built quite of a platform, quite a network of colleagues and things over the years that I've realized over time that a lot of our community is just not fortunate enough to be in those positions. And so a lot of times, when one works themselves into these positions, they kind of go out to a bigger city and go, do other things. And then the perception is that, that person forgot about the community. And so what I wanted to do is be very intentional about, didn't matter how big I grew, that I kept my roots tied into Spartanburg. So I could always stay humble, always reminded that I needed to, I guess, share my platform with those that are coming in behind me. And so at this point in my career, I think that's probably one of my biggest focuses is to create as big an impact for others as following behind me as I possibly can.
Man, I'm telling you, brother, you leaving the blueprint. I'm telling you, you are a living blueprint, and I'm seeing it. And then, ladies and gentlemen, some of those endeavors that he was talking about, I'm gonna label them out. And please, I'm telling you, I'm not reading a manual or a script. It's not a book. This is what this brother is really doing, Jay. And you feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. Okay, right now, Jay is owner and president of Cornbread Consulting Firm Inc., Black Hollywood Travel, Black Economic Mobility and Coalition, Tolbert Consulting Group, and owner and operator of the new amazing Euphoria Kitchen and Cocktails. Did I leave anything out?
I mean, there's some things that's still out there, but I think the overall kind of vision of it all is that what we have here is a hospitality restaurant group. And so what I own is a restaurant group that has a lot of entities that's up under it. And so our restaurant group is called Cornbread Hospitality Group. And up under that umbrella is our flagship restaurant concept, which is, like you said, Euphoria Kitchen and Cocktails. And so that is now here in downtown Spartanburg, with plans to franchise and scale that concept out here in the very near future, initially throughout the southeastern region. So picking up a lot of bigger markets. So we want to start in Spartanburg. Like I said, again, we want to keep our roots tied to here. But ultimately, now that we have built that platform, we're now looking to stamp out in bigger markets.
I
So
love it.
that's that. Cornbread Consulting Firm is a restaurant hospitality firm, and so we're partnering with pretty much everybody from one Spartanburg to you name it. We have aligned ourselves with them, and what we do there is that we very specifically work with small business restaurant operators, not just restaurant operators, but also food truck. Caterers, anybody up hotels, nightclubs. So anybody that's in that hospitality space, what we do is we kind of come in, we work with them shoulder to shoulder to help them build the systems that initially is going to help them be consistent, so they can build sales in their business. But then from there, kind of take the business where they want to go. Some people like myself choose to create a restaurant group and pretty much manage all of the entities that's up under it. Some of my clients want us to franchise. And so we help them getting their franchise agreements and stuff in place and then helping them scale into those things.
That is
And
amazing.
so
I'm going to interject because
yeah, go
we're going
ahead.
to dive deep into each and every single one of them. But I want the audience to kind of get a little bit more of a further understanding of you, the younger Jay. And then we're going to go into dissecting each of your business endeavors because I think we don't want to brush over each one of those because I think what you just mentioned and just that synopsis is huge in itself. But I want the viewer to understand what you provide because I think it's huge and it's transformative what you're doing. And I want to break those down.
Let's
So,
do
but
it.
I want to change gears. What was the younger Jay like? What motivated you in your adolescence?
I think a few things. I think I think that the most impactful thing that influenced me was my family dynamic. At the time, what seemed normal to me, the older I got, I started to realize in our community, it wasn't that normal. And what that scenario, what that situation was, is that I grew up in a family of entrepreneurs. So every single person from my granddaddy to my grandmother to my mom to my uncle to my aunts to any person around me, they all had their own business. Some of them would be in business together, but for the most part, everybody had their own business. And being that everybody had their own business, everybody was busy. And so, with everybody being busy managing their business, I spent a lot of time personally with my grandmother. And so, my grandmother was the I would say she was the bookkeeper slash accountant of the conglomerate. And
This
so,
is amazing.
being that she spent more time in the office, I kind of spent more time hanging out with her. And so, growing up, I was able to see a lot of what I would call HR related situations, kind of from behind the scenes. And as being a young kid, I was just like any other kid. I was just curious, nosy at sometimes.
Yeah,
Maybe stuck my opinion in places where thought I knew what I was talking about, but
yeah.
maybe not so much. But all of that kind of helped groom me. And like I said, I thought that was just a kid growing up. I thought that was a normal thing until I got older and I started to realize that a lot of people didn't have that same type of upbringing. People would come to me and say, "Hey, I don't know anybody in my family that's had a business or I don't have anybody to turn to." And so that's when really started to see how valuable my upbringing was.
Man, I just want to tell you, man, the tribe that you had around you and the wherewithal that you had in your adolescence is unmatched. I mean, it's unmatched. And again, you will see, and as our audience, they will see other entrepreneurs that's coming on this platform uh, have stories that are all different. It's all different. But what I'm hearing from you is that what made you special is that you took note, you took stock, not really knowing what was going on, but you took it all in subconsciously and consciously and grew into this individual. Would you say that's more of middle school, high school age, or when you graduated?
I will say, brother, it was as early on as 7, 8. Yeah, I think it was very early on. And I think you know, seeing those type of things, it had me very curious about the world itself. I remember me asking my grandparents and my mom them, questions that probably would um maybe come off at the time a little bit, out of my age group. Like, bro, what are you talking about? Like,
Grown folk
I'm gonna give you an example. So I would like at age of 7, I would go to my grandma and I'm like, grandma, and she'd be like, what's up? And I'd be like, I don't think that guy who said they killed JFK, I don't think he really killed JFK. And
Yeah.
then my grandma be like, "Boy, what is you talking about?" First, I wasn't even old enough to be in that era of JFK. And so that in itself was like, where did that come from? And then for you to, at a young age where you probably should be playing with toys, G.I. Joes or something, your brain was processing, these conspiracy theories, I guess we could call them that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Trying to make sense of it all. And so what I think I realized very early on is I had a very analytical brain.
Yeah,
The way I perceived things was very much so aligned in that way.
man, bro, that the gems that you just now gave me, and a piggyback question that I want off of that is, you had that around you. What type of advice would you have for anyone that don't see that but has those dreams and aspirations? Would it be keep your creativity going? Like, what would you say to the young individuals or grown individuals that feel like they're stuck?
So I would say two things. I would say initially um if you don't have those type of people around you, seek those type of people. I was fortunate enough to be in a family of those people. But I asked myself often if I wasn't, what would be my path? And I think it may have taken me a lot longer to achieve some of the things I've achieved if it wasn't for that, because I would have spent a considerable amount of time trying to find that network of people. So I would say early on, try to connect with people that align, not necessarily with what you're currently doing, but more so of where you're trying to go is the people that you want to kind of align yourself with. So I would say that would be one. And I say the other thing would be, I think when we're young, we have this wild, interesting imagination, right?
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
very creative. We believe that we can do anything. And I think that the older we get, we let life kind of tell us how things should be. And I would encourage and challenge people to never give up on the child in them, the kid in them, because that in itself is where it's going to take you to where you need to be. If you don't do that, then what you're going to do, you're going to find yourself in a space where everybody else is. So you just
Hmm.
got to, in your life or in certain checkpoints in your journey, you just have to have some of these real conversations with yourself and ask yourself, are you okay with it or not? Am I okay with the environment that I'm in right now? And if I'm not, then what is the actionable steps that we're going to take to move forward? Some people know they're not in the right place.
Yeah.
Oh, some women know they're in an abusive relationship, but they still stay. So it's kind
Mm.
of like, you have to make the choice to say, you know what, I'm worth more than that. And so this is the how I'm gonna, alter or correct my journey or my steps.
And I want to piggyback off of what you just said too. You know, and I know this to be true in my line of work as well. You got to have that certain a level of creativity, that certain level of imagination, and the self empowerment to dare to take action on it. And from what I've known or saw of you from afar, you've always done it. So was it always one of those things? I'm gonna take it to the high school level. Uh, a lot of the adults are still kind of stuck in that cliquish type of mentality. If they're not doing it, I don't want to do it. When would you say you really garnered that self-empowering motive in yourself to say, you know what? I don't know what y'all wasting time on, but I'm about to do what I want to do. When
Sure.
was that? When did that click?
Um, I think I've always kind of had that in my mind, which allowed me to be more of a leader than a follower. So I feel like I've always been the type of person that kind of that beat to my own drum. But if I
Mhm.
could say if there was a defining moment, I would say when I had my first child. If I
Oof.
could think of anything, when I had my first daughter, Maya, I think that's when it really clicked for me that not saying that I wasn't serious before,
Yeah.
but now I had someone that was going to be looking up to me, and I had to be a good example.
Man, bro, you know, I love that response, but from me, kudos to you because you've always been doing it to my eyes, and I've been seeing what you've been creating. And I want my viewers to really understand that you too can create, but you got to believe in yourself and then take action. Whatever it is, find out what that why is, and then execute.
Sure.
Let's go to what did you get your love for culinary arts? What was it? Was that in adolescence as well?
Yeah, and so the interesting thing about it is that I don't necessarily have a love for culinary.
Talk
You
to me.
know,
Talk to me.
yeah. And so what the misconception is that people believe that I'm a chef. But no, that's not the side of it that I fell in love with. I fell more in love with I'm a businessman,
Mm,
and so I love business. And so what made me fall in love with the hospitality as a business is just the culture of it. I think very early on, one of my first jobs, I was a dishwasher at a restaurant when I wasn't even old enough to work. And something that I kind of picked up really early on about restaurants is that it didn't matter who you were. Didn't matter if you was white, didn't matter if
mm,
you was black, didn't matter if you was Republican, Democrat, poor, rich. What I found is that doesn't matter what those circumstances were, you all would come to an agreement if you
yes.
found this dish or this item to be something that you all respect. And so when I looked around the landscape of the restaurant, I've seen all different type of people. So then I started to see restaurants for what it truly is, which is a melting pot of different people. So that in itself, I think, if I could back up a little bit, I
Yeah, go
think
ahead.
being that analytical young man and having these questions about conspiracy theories and things like that had me ask myself questions of like, where or will we as a But I'm saying I'm talking very specifically about the southern region of America. Would we get to this place where race wasn't so much on the front of the conversation, right?
Man, Jay, I love that.
So that was always kind of in the back of my mind. And so I was always, as a kid, when I would hear problems, even though sometimes I didn't know what I was talking about, I would try to solve them. And so that was one of those things that kind of came in my mind as a young man, that I personally had very rare moments where I dealt with racism kind of head on, but I was always kind of in the atmosphere of it, And so I will always kind of ask myself, like, what would it take to kind of move past that, right? And for some unique reason, I seen restaurants as a vehicle for that. Seeing that people would come in there, they would sit right beside a couple, you know what I'm saying, that probably outside would they would have these strong opinions about.
Yeah,
And so even some of the mindset of how the restaurant operates, like most restaurants wouldn't put politics in the news on their TVs. So that was a part of like behind the scenes training. And so when one would ask, why would you not do that? And the answer is because it's very divisive.
yeah,
Like you say, you're Republican, Democrat. So if I've got CNN on there, gonna be some people agree with it, some people
right,
gonna be up in uproar about it.
right.
Same thing about any of those other things. So we really just try to stay in the middle. And I found that to be where I think that that's kind of where we can kind of start at as a culture in the South. How do we move forward? We move forward by finding, not necessarily talking about things we disagree on, but more or less the things that we do have in common. And that's what I found in restaurants. And so from there, that was kind of my motivation in the hospitality industry, is to pull people together and unify people through that way.
That is a huge why, Jay. That is when people say find your why,
Hmm.
why, I'm gonna piggyback on what you're saying too. Is when I first started on a smaller level with my photography business, it wasn't necessarily me wanting to do photography. It was me wanting to go out and meet new people. I
Yeah, for
like
sure.
so I'm an engineer by day, but you don't see this type of conversations just in engineering. So I was like, well, what can it breed that imaginative kid again? And that was bringing photography into the way. And I even had a lot of reviews that say, or one in particular, the individual was like, "You ain't got to go for Kendrick for the photography, even though it's great, but you just got to go and have a conversation with him."
Sure.
And I think that that was kind of my why. And so I definitely can understand where you're coming from. But no, me myself, I did not know that about you. I thought it was you led with the culinary arts, first, but you had a bigger reason behind it.
Yeah,
Y-
and it's all about like I said, it's all about Spartanburg, because I believe that Spartanburg is one of those places where um, it used to be. So if you go historically back, Spartanburg was once bigger than Greenville from an economic standpoint and all the metrics. But along the way, I guess when the downturn of the textile industry and all that stuff kind of came in, Spartanburg started to slip, Greenville kind of took off. But still, Spartanburg still has this very strong infrastructure that's there that positions it very well to have a huge resurgence. You know what I'm saying? And so I think that in a lot of these communities, they get this upward swing, but it's through a lot of gentrification. There's a lot of people that are left out in that upswing in communities. And so very intentionally, as Spartanburg kind of does its upward swing, I wanted to be in a position where we could see to it that we are not left out in that conversation.
I love what you're doing, bro. Um, and then with that, we don't have to get into the nuts and bolts of everything. But young Jay, you noticed you had this business type of acumen coming up. You saw business entrepreneurs all in your family, even probably even do some of the bookkeeping. You saw a lot of that. When you had that thought, that vision, and you're like, I'm gonna act on it. Look, I know some culinary stuff. I see it. I like the business aspect. I'm gonna put all these ideas together and I'm gonna have me a business. What was your first steps in doing so as an entrepreneur at the beginning of your entrepreneur journey? What was your first steps?
For sure. So it started with experience. Okay. And so even though I seen hospitality for what it was, I had not yet built the experience yet. And so when I started to realize this is something that I wanted to do, then what I started to do from that point is gain knowledge.
Yeah.
Okay. And so I worked myself into different restaurant roles and got myself to a place where I was a multi-unit manager where I was overseeing a lot of stores. What that done for me is gave me the insight that I needed to build my own. And so that's kind of how I got here is through doing it for other people. You know, I took on a multi-unit restaurant management job that they had just acquired maybe like 14 stores and they was doing horrible. And so I took that challenge on just to simply learn the ins and outs of turning around 14 stores at one time, while the plane is in the air, you know. And so it took me about 18 months to do that. But on the other side of that, what came out of that was out of those 15 plus stores, maybe about over half of them, the general managers wind up being top ranked in that restaurant chains, top GMs, and they had over 3,000 stores in their units in their conglomerate. So that's kind of where the confidence came in that not only can I do it for them, that I can do it for me. So once I had when I felt like I
Awesome.
had the professional experience, then I wanted to kind of take my entrepreneurial upbringing with that experience and then now cross over. And so I didn't jump straight into doing restaurants. The first thing that we did was a catering company. It was that was the first thing that we did, and man, we didn't have a kitchen to cook out of. I mean, I cooked out of my restaurant. I mean, out of my apartment. But we that's how we first started. Cooked out of apartment. I had a Nissan Altima. If anybody know about Nissan Altima, it is not big at all. And, and we used to have to do these big old catering events, and I used to have to make 2 and 3 trips back and forth to my apartment just to get all the product and stuff on site. But again, this is something that I knew that we was in the right heading in the right direction based off of the feedback. More importantly, you know, we would throw events that we would come up with events to do because this upstate area didn't really have a lot of events for African Americans. And that's something else that I seen very early on. Because I was in the the restaurant industry and I was making good money, there was never nothing around here to do. And so what I found myself doing is going to Atlanta or going to bigger markets and going to a jazz show and doing these different things that was in these bigger markets. And I was wondering like, why would we never have that stuff here? And so that's kind of so it was like a whole bunch of things started to kind of cook like gumbo in my mind that kind of pulled it all together. So it was like the opportunity of there was nothing like what I was wanting to do or what I was patronizing in bigger cities in this market. I had the entrepreneurial background, and then I was in the hospitality industry. So it was just like, okay, well, if I see the hole, if somebody's going to do it, who's going to do it? I guess it's going to be me. So I just ran through the hole.
Look, I want to talk to my viewers about some highlights that I just not got. I hope y'all are taking notes because I am. So you mean to tell me it ain't a microwave success around here? You actually got
Absolutely
to put
not.
in some time, huh?
Bother it.
So so I want individuals to understand, and I'm very much a process guy myself.
Hmm.
I want to know, side story. I ain't gonna get this gentleman name. It's individuals that I invest with or have invested with, and they was like, "No, you don't want to deal with this. You trust me. You want to come and do this." Yeah, but you already went through that. I,
Sure.
I, I need to go through that too.
Most
I'm
definitely.
literally that process guy. And then doing so, this gentleman is my mentor now, but he was like, you know what? I respect you more. No shortcuts. That's what I'm trying to get a lot of the young individuals and individuals that sitting on the stool of doing that. It ain't microwave, and it's okay. Long as you finding your purpose, and I'm telling you, brother, you are in alignment. You in alignment with what you got, and you're okay with doing it. You just admit driving a Nissan off.
Yeah. But this is a 20 I want people to understand when you say that, this is a at least a 20-year process, at least 20 years. And so my thing is this, is that if you're not willing to stand in it for that long, I would argue you haven't found your purpose yet.
Ooh.
because this was something that I mean, any person that was around me during those early years can attest to. Um, People thought I was that's full blown crazy. Like, where and I seen it crystal clear. So for people to see how, like, man, you're smacking where everything's happening right now. Like, how did you work yourself into that position? And I'm like, I seen it 20 years ago,
Mm.
and I was just willing to, despite what was happening, in those 20 years, I just stayed steadfast in what I knew I seen.
And look, and then you also mentioned that you were actually doing things from your house, and I'm a big advocate. Don't let what you don't have stop the show. Once you see it, you believe in it. You start where you're at with what you have, and you gave a beautiful example of I was driving back and forth to make this thing work, and that's the work that a lot of people don't see. They
Yeah,
just like, man, you lucky, you know.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
but I mean, they say that a lot about me, that I'm lucky. But the reality is
Yeah,
that
I get you. I get you.
what people fail to realize is that when you start to peel back the layers,
Yeah.
what you'll see is that, man, I've had plenty of businesses throughout these 20 years that I thought was going to be multi-million-dollar concepts that wind up folding up.
Yeah.
So there is, it's not about,
Oh,
you coming up with something and you automatically being successful. That's not what it's about. It's about becoming,
mhm.
and so
Ooh.
if, one of my goals, even though it may sound like a financial goal, it's not necessarily. It depends on how you look at it. So one of
Yep.
my goals
Yep.
is to be a billionaire.
Mhm.
But when you hear that,
Ain't
when
nothing wrong with
most
that.
people hear that, they think about it from a monetary only standpoint,
That's
not
just
from
how
the
it is.
other side of the way I'm looking at it. If I'm
Impact.
a billionaire, then that's even more influence. And so if
Mhm.
I'm living in purpose, now with that type of influence,
Yes.
now I'm able to make even bigger impact than I'm making now. And so long time ago, I was reading books. And that's another thing.
I was
You're
about to
gonna
ask you that. I was gonna ask you that next.
My god.
Go ahead, brother.
Oh
Go
my
ahead.
god. I mean, there's too many books along the way that I think we all should learn or should read, because it helps open our eyes to what's really going on here. A lot of times, especially young black men,
Yeah.
unless you was fortunate enough to have a mentor or a father who really, really had himself together, you're gonna have to do a lot of this learning on your own. You're going to pick these books up. You're going to have to challenge yourself to do things that you really don't want to do. And I'll be honest with you, there's been plenty of times where I've been super busy and I didn't have a chance to sit down and read a paper book.
Mhm.
But I said, okay, if I can ride in the car, I'm in a car as a consultant, and I'm probably in my car multiple hours, a week. Then
Yeah.
instead of listening to Ti and Jeezy, which nothing's wrong with these
I
fellas,
got
these are
you.
my guys. I'm gonna pop in that audiobook,
Jay.
digest that information however I can. And so that's the kind of mindset you kind of got to work yourself into.
Well, yeah, and I wanna say the same thing too, is I conducted a show not too long ago with a individual that's the owner of a mobile book store, and she did enlighten me on a different perspective on reading, but mine come from where I come from. It was, books is what changed my life. I wasn't privy to having a father in the house. I wasn't privy to being around those who've already done it. I didn't even see what you were able to see when you were coming up. It was more so of I need to find out what this feels like from the inside. Why am I feeling that I can do more on the inside? And
Sure.
then when I picked up a book, actually I'll tell you mine. I actually started from my people perish from lack of knowledge from the Bible. My people perish from lack of knowledge. So I read the Bible through and through twice. Not saying I'm a religious guy totally. I'm more of a spiritual guy.
Me
But
too.
but it's one of those things to where I understood that I am co-creator of my life's experience. And so when I started to pick up literature, learning new vernacular, learning new my biggest thing started with finances. So it was, the acumen that I can do more. And then it started with I need to learn finances because I need to rise above survival so my dreams can have wings. So I can really do that. So I spent a lot of my earlier time reading literature on finances and then a lot of business books, entrepreneurial books, because the way you might pick up an entrepreneurship book, but it's a lot of gems is just about life and mindset. And that's why I have individuals like you, and then you so eloquently just stated that you actually read or you listen to different literature. You're a family guy, and he's saying, if I can't read it, I'm gonna listen to it in the car. Probably en route to another business meeting. Probably en route to when I go home to see my missus and my children. Is that a good use of your free time when you get home, or do you just like, hey, I'm focusing on the fam right now?
I just think you have to find your balance.
Okay.
See, my wife is an entrepreneur as well. She owns her own business, and so you just have to be wired for that type of stuff. If you are, if both of y'all are entrepreneurs, then you have to have a certain type of organization and communication between you all, so things still operate like they need to.
I love it.
In some other situations, one may be the entrepreneur, and the one actually still works. What I'm saying? So again, regardless, you still have to kind of find that balance. Because if not, then you're gonna get distracted. And then you're being distracted, and now you're gonna focus on things that are not again aligned to your purpose. I think you said something that may be for a whole nother conversation, but I think our people need to start having more conversations about is understanding this process of what life is really. You said something that definitely needs some unpacking at some point, which is that you are a co-creator in this life. And I think that we gotta unpack that a lot more. Because there's a lot to that. There's a
It
lot
is.
to that we as a community do not know. And it's the reason why we have been tricked out of our position.
Well,
Um,
we gonna have to, yeah.
Yeah, so
Look,
it's a
we
lot
definitely gonna
more
have
we
to.
gotta dive into with that,
We got to
and
do
it's
that.
it's very much so the reason kinda how we got here and why we where we at.
I'm gonna use this old term. Game recognized game. You can sit around and you can look at individuals who are number one going through it, walking through it, trying to figure it out, having questions, and those who are acting it out, like those who are actually living it out. So yeah, man, we might have to have a part two with you on the show on a different topic. But I really want my viewers, and I don't want to hold your time up as much today. But so we talked about the cornbread. No. So you had cornbread to caviar, and that was I'm gonna tell you that was a huge thing
Mhm.
popping up in Spartanburg. I'm just
Yep,
gonna take from the outside looking at him like, man, oh man, like that's
yep,
amazing because we
yep,
never seen anything like that.
mhm,
So is that where you took the name cornbread to caviar to cornbread consulting firm because it was like one of those things that people knew about, or is it a deeper?
it is just in, what the culture of it was, and so the whole reason for us naming the restaurant Cornbread and Caviar is that we wanted to, kinda show our range, yes, we wanna stay true to our Southern ties because, like, we usually Southern hospitality and things like that, so that's where that cornbread come in, so anytime we ever say the word cornbread, we always seen that people would giggle behind that, they would smirk or something, and we would ask people, like, "What was so funny?" or whatever the case may be, and it was like, "Oh, no, no." It was like, "Oh, that's when I say cornbread, it made me think about my mom. My grandma used to make the best cornbread,
Yeah,
and ultimately, that's the feeling we want you to have
gotcha.
as a business and as a consulting company. We want you to know that we do things with that level of service. So that's where the cornbread comes from, and the caviar aspect of it was just how we was presenting that Southern hospitality, in a very upscale fashion. And so that's kind of where the play on the name come from. But then once we came out with that, people started calling me Mr. Cornbread.
No, they
It was
didn't. I didn't know that.
yeah, it was just calling me Mr. Cornbread. So it was just something that when that restaurant closed down, which at that time um I didn't understand why the restaurant closed down, to be honest with you, because like you said, I mean, it was super popular. It was again something.
And
It was that concept was the first thing that concept told showed me that I had godlike powers. It was the first thing that showed me that there is something more in us than we realize. Because there were so many things that had hindered us or should have hindered us from opening that place up that not only did we open it up within 90 days, man, I'm telling you, man, at the time of opening
Oh,
up
that's
that
pretty quick.
restaurant, we probably needed about $300,000 to renovate that restaurant to get it
Yeah.
open. At the time of us signing that lease, we had 5,000. We opened that
Let me
building,
talk to the people. Go ahead, talk to.
man. We opened up that building um, within 90 days from that moment. You know,
That's a
and
restaurant. This ain't just like something small. This is a whole
oh,
restaurant.
we know we're talking a 7,000 square feet restaurant, 2 levels, interior courtyard. I'm talking about it was, I mean, center court downtown. So you want to talk about pressure, as we know, I'm from Spartanburg. And so the talk was, oh, he's bringing this restaurant downtown. Because I already had the restaurant in downtown Greenville. And so the restaurant initially started in downtown Greenville.
I didn't
This
know
was
that, man.
even, Man, listen, it started in downtown Greenville before downtown Greenville became what it is now. So
Yeah.
I've been a part of the upstate swing from the beginning. My first restaurant was downtown Greenville when downtown Greenville's attraction was just the Hyatt Hotel and that big waterfall on North Main. You wouldn't even go down to the West End because it was too hood. They didn't have that ball field. Wasn't none of that stuff down there yet. And so my first restaurant was there. From there, I started helping other restaurateurs who started to come into downtown Greenville. I started helping them open up their restaurants. So places like Ink and Ivy and all those places, I helped them open those restaurants up. So a lot of these restaurants that came in and anchored downtown Greenville that made it be who it is now, I was at the planning table. I helped curate what you see now downtown. And so that's one of my motivating reasons of wanting to come back home again. Say, hey, all right, well, if I can help them do this in Greenville, again, I want to see Spartanburg rise. And so I made the investment. That's where cornbread caviar and Spartanburg came from. I wanted to start to do that thing there. But maybe as a young man, maybe a little bit too ambitious, because at that time I was 24 years old when I opened up that restaurant. And it was at least 10 years ahead of its time. And
It was
so
beautiful, man. That was a beautiful
restaurant was
restaurant.
great. It was successful, won all types of different accolades. But again, got caught up in the recession of 2009 and 2010. So I want your viewers to know that, yes, man, I've had many highs, but it does not it's not as important, or you can't get one without the other. So I've had as many upswings as I had downswings. So that restaurant, we opened it up, man, we did $2 million a year in sales, best new restaurant, man, people spending $20,000 a month in wine, so life was good. Then you get hit with the recession in 2009, 2010, and it's like the rug got pulled out from under us.
You did not let it stop you. Look, I'm gonna tell you this. One of the questions I had is, can you share a failure
Mhm.
that, in hindsight, was the turning point for your success? And
It's
I
this
think you
one.
just got told.
It's this one. Yeah. So when that restaurant closed, it it put a taste in my mouth that I had never had before. Because man, at this time, like I said again, you are putting on for your hometown now. You know what I'm saying? So it's a different level of responsibility and that you carry when you're that person. And then on top of that, I was this young 24-year-old, African American trying to pull it off, and I had nobody around me. When we talk about mentors, you have to realize at that moment, I had outgrew my mentors. I
Talk
was in a
about that,
league.
man.
I was in a league of my own.
It's a real
There was
thing.
nobody in that space that I could turn to that could give me any type of advice because I had now just created my own lane. And so people would say, "Hey, I got your back," but they couldn't really talk to me on the same level because they didn't quite understand it. There was almost a spectator of it than an actual mentor at that point. And so when that restaurant closed down, or before it closed down, um, I was trying different things. I was trying to find a restaurant consultant. So that's how we got here. So I tried to, when the restaurant started to close, I went looking for a restaurant consultant. They didn't have any restaurant consultants in this market. Okay. So the only restaurant consultant I could find was in Atlanta. So the restaurant consultant, once I talked to him, told me that, hey, we can come up there, we can see what we can do to help you, but we need at least a $5,000 retainer. Okay. Now, this is in a point where this is the recession happening. I'm hemorrhaging money like crazy, and I'm trying to save this restaurant. And you're telling me that you need 5,000 just not to fix it, but to just come up here and look at the project. So I didn't have it. So I didn't use them. So I had some investors that are part of that restaurant or whatever. I wanted to keep going, but they was like, hey, we don't know how this economy is going to shake out. Let's kind of cut our losses while before it gets any uglier. So I was like, okay, cool. But like I said, I had to close that restaurant down. So that put a taste in my mouth that I didn't quite, I'm be honest with y'all. I started to question God in this moment.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
started to, because I didn't understand the why. I'm like, God, why would you put me in a situation where I had an opportunity to get this restaurant? I only had 5,000 when I needed 300,000. You made that possible. You had me blow up. You had me win all these accolades. You had me do this. You had me do that, and you yanked the rug out from under me. What was that for? Right? And in that moment, man, I had just got married. So
Yeah.
had a young family at that moment. So now I had to pay bills, bro. Bills are still billing, right?
They come, yeah.
Man, I went from owning a restaurant to needing a job really bad that I picked up a job they were just about to open up that Longhorn in Spartanburg. I took a grill job, cooking steaks in the restaurant just because I needed a job real quick. Everybody in that restaurant knew that I owned that restaurant, Cornbread. So think about how the humbling of a situation that could be for somebody who everybody, even the managers of the restaurant knew that this guy owned that restaurant that just closed down. And now we got him over here as a grill cook. You see what I'm saying? So
Hey, listen.
you gotta have a certain type of mindset to be able. So I did what I had to do in that moment.
Yes. Yeah,
And
drop the
then
goal.
also, but I also started to look for these other opportunities. That's how I got into that multi-unit, man. So I didn't stay in that role long, but the point of it was I was willing to do it.
Yeah,
I was willing to do whatever was necessary to keep things going. So it didn't take me long. Another opportunity presented itself where, like I said, now I was able to go back into corporate America with
yeah,
restaurants and
yeah.
manage them above store and picking up and learning the very things. The interesting thing about it is that one of the reasons why that restaurant closed outside of it being the economy is that all the way up until that point, I was a good operator of a restaurant. So I was a good manager. What I didn't know so much is finances. I didn't know bookkeeping,
Yeah,
cash flow,
yeah,
saying
yeah.
EBITDA and all these different things that I know now. So when I went back to corporate America, the very job God assigned me, that's all I had to focus on every day. I was managing stores that now I had to hyper focus on a very weak spot I had initially.
Boy.
Was able to now make that a strength. And then when I felt like God was telling me it was time, my time was up, I started asking my wife. I said, "Hey, I want to move on. What do you think I should do?" And then one of the things that was said was like, why don't you start your own business? And at first I thought she was talking about a restaurant. And bro, I just didn't have a taste for it. And I was like, nah, I don't think I want to do that. And but we landed on why don't you help other people with restaurants? So I said, all right, well, let me call around to the chambers. Let's see how many restaurant consultants are around, and then let's go from there. Wind up 2, 3 weeks later, they called back, nobody. And so that's how we got here from a
Okay,
consultant. And so
okay.
ever since then, we've been helping people do the very thing that at that point I needed help with.
Look, I'm trying to get to your other endeavors. I'm trying, man, but you keep on you keep giving us some bars. I want to talk about the misses on this one.
Mhm.
This is a prime example of when I tell people sometimes you gotta have your spouse speak life into you. See things that you probably can't see at that time.
Sure.
That conversation you just not had
Hmm.
with your wife, even though that seed was probably in you
Hmm.
at that very moment, she just poured some water on it. She was like, "Hey, what about this?" She saw you as an individual. She saw what you're good at. She seen that you had a dream. She see that you had a goal. Bruh, I'm
Yeah.
gonna tell you, you winning.
Yeah.
I mean that's a huge thing, and I think a lot of people need to understand that too. But then going back to you held that dream, your goal, your vision, in mind's eye, even with being at the highest of height, taking. I ain't gonna say no L. That's just
Yeah,
list, dog.
yeah,
That's the process I'm talking about.
for sure.
That's the process of what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Another individual told me this, like, life is like the cha-cha.
Mhm.
You
Very
take some
much
steps
so.
forward, you gotta go back. That's just one of those drawbacks or pullbacks in the stock market. It's just one of those things where you had to reassess, reposition, not even pivot, but you had to learn some areas that you didn't quite know. That's why I told my boys is some of those L's, those lessons just mean you ain't passed that class yet. And then
Yeah.
that's me. That's the thing with freedom. Peace of mind and freedom in life is I notice now when you're going out there creating something and it don't happen in the time frame you want it or how you want it, uh some of those things come by way of taking them L's. I mean, the lessons. Some of those come by way of, you know what? I gotta run towards what I don't know. I gotta run towards what I'm afraid of. And the peace of mind comes from when you look at everything that happened to you in your life for your betterment. Like you mentioned, one of the first things that you had to do was take on a role that you thought that you were kind of weak in your business. And that's what I want the viewers to listen to too. That's how the most high the universe shows you organically that you're taking the right steps for your life. And you kept doing it. Man, I love
You're
how
not
you
gonna
said.
you're not gonna always have the answers. So that's to me in hindsight. If I'm talking to a younger me, then I would say really work on your perspective of what's happening. Like you said, losses are not losses; they're lessons. But even more importantly than that, what this life really is a slingshot. So when you're getting pulled back, it's the tension. You know what I'm saying? And so what'll happen is one day he gonna let go. And when
Mm,
he let go, you're gonna propel forward so fast, you're gonna now realize what all that tension was for.
yes. 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 Oh man, I love it. Man, now, I might have to have you on for a part two because I'm about to get to these other questions, man. But
Let's
but
do it.
you dropping a lot of gems, man. I love it because it is, and that's what I want the viewers to understand. It ain't just about the business; it's the person you're becoming. And you mentioned it earlier of the podcast that you said that it's about becoming, and I love how you said that. So now we talked about Cornbread to Caviar, Cornbread consulting firm. What is this Black Hollywood travel, man? How did you get into that?
So again, just kind of anything that I've created all kind of stems from who I am as a person. So that's why a lot of people ask me how I'm able to do so many things. None of these things are out of the wheelhouse of who I am. So they
Uh-uh.
don't feel like it's work, and I think maybe that's what it is. Nothing feels like work. So Black Hollywood Travel is very simply, I am a world traveler. It's very simple. I love. I initially started that in the Navy. So instead of going to college, I was in the Navy. And so being in the Navy, I probably have been to more countries than I've been to cities or states in in America. And
Yeah.
so throughout that is kind of where I've learned to love people. Not
Mhm.
necessarily people, but people around the world. I guess fall in love with other cultures. I guess
Yeah.
that's more
Yeah.
of what it was. And then so from there, I just kind of kept that going. And so now, I try to go, you know, man, everywhere. And so in that process of doing that, it started with my friends, people that, that's around me that I would say, hey, I'm about to go to Dubai. And they'd be like, hey, I want to go, and then so it kind of started off organically, kind of like that. And then it kind of grew into us doing it for other people, and so now we do, destination whatever, destination Thailand, destination Dubai, and destination, whatever. And so, sometimes it's couples, married couples, sometimes it's singles, but it is
Get
a
on that. I gotta get on it with my wife, man.
yeah, so
Oh,
it's a curated group of affluent African Americans that want to travel and see and do different things.
brother. Like I said, you walking in line, it don't feel like work. You just seeing a need, and you like, why
Mhm.
not me? And yeah, yeah. And that I want to touch on that too, because you said it earlier. One of my reasons of doing what I do, when I found out, uh, came from the hood, come from where I come from, I used to ask myself, why not me? I mean, when I started believing me, life started to be fun, because like, why not? It's like, if I don't see it, why not create it? And that's what I'm saying with you, with all your business endeavors, you're creating what you've envisioned for not only yourself,
Mhm.
for the community.
Most
And you
definitely.
very much have a heart of service and you believe in interdependency in
Mhm.
everything that you do. So it's like, I'm okay with crafting that out. Uh if it's gonna be the betterment for everybody else. And I think that's a personal thing that you can, really motivate others to strive to do the same thing. And then so next, the Black Economic Mobility Coalition. Is
Yeah.
this well, no, I'll let you explain it. What is the Black Economic Mobility Coalition?
Very simply, it's a Black Chamber of Commerce. And so again, where did these things come from? It comes from me being a young African American business owner that from the beginning of time, when you start a business, they will always say, sign up for the chamber, sign up for the chamber, sign up for the chamber.
Same thing.
And I used to do that. And then so, but nothing would happen kind of like throughout the year. And then next time I would see somebody, it would be time to renew those membership fees. So I used to have these conversations with the person like, man, what do y'all really do? You come around every year and you collect $500 from me, but I never see you again. And then they would say things like, oh, we got this net night and networking this and da 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 da. And I'm like, man, that's cool if you're not in your business. If you're maybe, about to semi-retired or something like that, maybe you got time to show up on a Tuesday to a networking event.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
most of us small business owners are tilling the soil. You know what I'm saying? And so we're in the business. So what can you do to help the people that's in the business? And they really didn't have anything for that. And so again, I'm a type of person that I don't like to ask for things. I think that as a community, we've spent too much of time asking to be a part of
Mm,
something.
yes.
You know what I'm
Well,
saying? That I
yes.
don't really see why we want to be included. Me personally, this is a personal, this is not a world view, this is my view. I don't see why we want to be included so much. When it has shown us that they want to be us. So why do we care so much? And so that's kind of one of my things. And so in anything that I do, you'll find out is very rooted in us. From the Taste of Black that we got this food festival coming up to, like you see, Black Economic Mobility Coalition to, Black Hollywood Travel. So that word Black is something that I'm very unapologetic about. I'm not anti anything,
I
but
got
I'm
you.
very pro Black. And so I want to use my platforms to create exposure and access for people that look very specifically like me. So that's where that Chamber of Commerce comes from. Okay. Because the reality is that, and this is not no knock on the one Spartanburg or Greenville chamber. There's not no
Yeah.
knock on any of these chambers,
Yeah.
but they
Yeah.
don't understand the plight of us. And so, because they don't understand the plight of us, uh, in my opinion, that's where it starts. You cannot really help mentor African American business owner. You cannot impact an African American in any type of way if you do not understand their plight. You're very ineffective. So your intentions can be well, so I'm not saying people don't have the right intentions. They definitely, I mean, I ain't gonna say definitely, but most of the time their intentions are in the right place. They just missing the mark because they don't understand us. They don't
Man.
understand how to talk to us. They don't understand how to ask the right questions. They don't know how to be soft when it's time to be soft, lean in to be more aggressive when it's time to be aggressive. They don't understand that dynamic. And so I believe that, we need to teach us.
So what I'm getting
The
from you
community needs to put people in position, need to put
is
aces in their places. We need to put entrepreneurs who are seasoned entrepreneurs, put them in their place. If you got African Americans that are lawyers and doctors or whatever, let's put these people in their right leadership position. Then from there, allow these people to work in a cohesive way that now we can create our own agendas, our own programs, our own things. And we got enough money inside of our own communities to support ourselves. So again, this is not an anti anything. This is letting us know that we can take care of ourselves. We always could have taken care of ourselves. And if we spend more time, that's why I'm not a big advocate of marching and all that stuff. It's not getting us anywhere. I'm very much so about what is the actionable steps. If we're gonna march down the street, okay, let's do it. But then what? What's the actionable step to do next? Because if it's just marching, they're not listening. And that's kind of where I'm at with. So I want to create the entities that our counterparts take us seriously when we open our mouth and we have a voice. When you're just marching down the street and you're unorganized, you don't have an entity, you don't have equity, you don't have these very important things. It don't matter if it's a million people on the street. The voice is quiet. But if we got ownership, so we own parts of downtowns, and we have this, we have that, we have business, we have our own schools, we have this and this and that. Now we have our own chamber of commerces. Now our voice is now weighted a lot differently.
Man, yeah, and you just had mentioned it. I also seen that you got this. You correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know the term I'm about to use, but you also have this like co-op or this. I don't want to say you offer different business professionals to come together on certain stuff. Explain what it is. Is it more of different
I'm in it. I'm
projects?
in it right now. Yeah, so
Oh,
I'm in it right now.
talk to
So
me. Talk to me about.
what this is again we're downtown Spartanburg, and what we have is a co-working space for small business owners. So the goal here is that um, in our suite we have probably about I would say about 10 private offices, but we also have a boardroom, training room, probably got about 10 computers in it. We have a lab, we have a podcast room, and so we have quite a bit of a setup. And so what we've created here is that if you're a small business owner, and the first things first is that people got to take you seriously.
Correct.
So you come to us first, and we help you from a on paper perspective look professional. But then when you're now trying to take that next step, you don't have money for overhead to just jump out there and do things. And so we have a setup here where if let's say you're having an important meeting, you don't have an office. So what you do, you can just rent out our boardroom for an hour, jump in there and put on a full-blown presentation as if this whole suite is yours. We don't care. So you can rent it out by the day, you can rent it out by the hour. We have people in here that rent out private offices about a month. It's designed to help walk you up and out of here. So I've actually had people, African American business owners that have outgrown this space and now have their own multi-office situation. So that's the goal. When you come in, you just getting started, you need the mentorship, you need the structure. So in our office right now, we don't just let anybody get a private office here either. So if you come here, you will see that the people that work here or that's inside of here is very intentional. Like, I'm a business coach. So I am hospitality, but I also do business credit, personal credit, business funding, things like that. We have tax professionals in here. We have home care owners. So there's a lot of us who want to get into home care. And so there's people that's in here that are professionals in other aspects of business. And so the things that I can't help you with, I don't try to help people with. I help you with the things I help you with. Anything else, there's somebody next door that does that. So we just throw that referral down to that person. It's like, hey, this person will have some tax questions. Hey, I'm a business coach. I don't get into all of that. Here you go. And so we work in that. So what we've created ultimately is is one hell of an ecosystem.
Man, one hell of a ecosystem. I didn't know that. I mean, I
Mhm.
really didn't know that. I know you was moving and shaking, doing a whole bunch of stuff, man. But that you breathing life to a lot of individuals just by
Mhm.
offering a space like that. To one,
Yeah,
you can come, pretty much give birth to your idea.
that's exactly what it is.
Jay,
Yeah, you can come in here, and people come in here, bro, and don't even have all they people come in here and say, "Hey, I want to start a business," and that's all they have. They'll come in here, and we'll have our first coaching sessions just around finding their purpose.
who they are.
Yeah, find out who they're. Anytime somebody comes in here, it doesn't matter what they come in here wanting. We always start there. I had some girls, ladies coming here wanting to start a hair, sell the bundles and all of that type of stuff. And they came here, hey, we want to start our business, da 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 da. And they was thinking it strictly from a perspective of selling bundles. Okay. But if we can pull those ladies on the camera and ask them how many times they've been working with me probably about 6 weeks now. How many times have we talked about bundles? They're gonna tell you, maybe once. Because that's not business. The bundles is the vehicle. It's not the business. Starbucks, the coffee is not the business. The coffee is the vehicle into the marketplace. And so I spend time backing them up so they can understand, okay, that's your product or your service, cool. But now let's talk about the business. So now we've been spending time with them talking about setting up trust, setting up holding companies, setting up LLCs, getting those properly aligned, creating an operating agreement. So now you are the manager and the trustee, not the owner, to remove the liability. You know what I'm saying? So we're talking about real business here and how those things kind of all work together, and it flows into now the product. So that's what I'm saying. It's so much about business that we
Yeah,
don't know
yeah,
that needs to be thought about, structured before we actually jump off the porch with that product.
yeah. Like man, you bridging the gap. I mean, you are really doing your part to bridge the gap. And I heard from one of my mentors say, he was like, "You're thinking too small." I was like, I was came up with another business idea, just run it past him, talking over breakfast.
For sure.
He said, "You're thinking too small." I said, "Kendrick, you have to chase and build your system first. And your system will be the foundation for your business." And what I'm hearing you say, you are literally helping people create the foundation and systems in place to be able to move forward. Man, I did not.
That's
I'm
all
glad
I'm doing. I
that,
mean, that you have summed up, even though I got 10 different businesses, you just summed up all of them into that. That's that right there. That's
man.
exactly
I'm,
what we
I'm
out here
telling you,
doing.
I'm gonna have to sit down and have some coffee with you, man. Thanks for shining light on that, man. But look, I'm gonna go into. I'm definitely gonna probably have you on a part two on some other
For sure, bro.
situations, man. For
Yeah.
real, for real.
I think
Because
mindset, I think that there's need to be a lot of unpacking in mindset.
yes,
There's a lot with that. There's a lot
yes,
with that we have to kind of talk about, maybe later have a panel discussion about. I love to hear other
yes,
guys who have done well for themselves, their mindsets. And what we all will find out is there's a lot of there's differences obviously in that
yep,
journey, but then what
yep,
you'll find out there's a lot of similarities, in our thought process, even though they came from different upbringings, a lot of the same ideologies we had to align with to kind
yeah.
of get to where we're at.
Yeah, and like on my platform and this conversation right here, it's all about the mindset. I mean, because I think before you decide to do anything, you literally got to take stock in yourself. I mean, you got to be analytical of your own thoughts. Why am I thinking this way? Then once you kind of just do that, I'm brushing over this, but it's very big. You got to be analytical of your own thoughts and how you want to proceed with your life, being that co-creator of your life's experience and what you want it to look like. You really gotta be clear on what you want it to look like and then move forward, and having a sense of assurity that
Hmm.
I'm doing the right thing for me at this moment. Seasons
Sure,
may change, but in this
for sure.
moment, this is what I know, and I'm gonna
Mhm.
operate off of what I know. I'm not gonna sit on the stool and do nothing. But
Yeah,
this is what I want. Instead of complaining, I'm gonna take what
yeah,
these scraps I got and I'm gonna put it together and make a piece of artwork.
for
You know?
sure.
Eh
One of the things that, and if you don't mind, I like to do a little exercise before we get out the call.
go ahead, do your thing.
So I just want to do a little short exercise,
Yeah,
and I do this with all my clients, and it helps start the conversation of what
yeah,
we'll pick up on later. Okay,
yeah. It's all
so
right.
but I want to do it on you, but I
Yeah.
want you, obviously your audience will be able to hear this
Yes, yeah.
and see this exercise. So you know what this is, right? Don't say it, but you know what this is, right?
Yes.
Okay, cool. All right, so if you don't mind, I would like for you to say what this is without making a sound out your mouth, and let me know once you said it. You said it?
Yes.
Cool. Um, did you hear yourself say it?
Yes.
Okay. Are you pretty confident that I didn't hear you say it?
I'm confident.
Very confident. I'm confident as well. I didn't hear you say anything. So let me ask you something. If you are confident that you said this was a pen, I didn't hear you say it was a pen, but you can say, man, I said that was a pen. So then what was that then? If I didn't hear you and you heard it, What is that? What just happened?
Me, that's me talking to myself, and that's intuition from your side, being able to perceive what you know I'm perceiving.
No, this is the thing. The person who said pen and did not, and nobody heard,
Yeah.
that's the real you. This is not you. This is the vessel. The person that said pen and then nobody hear it, that's you. You're the spirit. That's a whole different conversation we're gonna get into later. But I just want to do that exercise so people can first say, okay, I said that. What is this for? Yeah,
That,
that is the real you. So
oh
that
yeah.
is the person you got to start to develop the relationship with. The person who said pen and then nobody else hear it. The
Look,
more you start to develop that relationship, make that person your best friend, what's going to happen is that now that person inside is going to now have the ability to live out and through the vessel. And that's how I'm here today.
boy, you gonna be we gonna be stepping on some toes with this conversation.
Yeah.
Because that what you just now said, that's you coming into being. That right there is you coming into being. And I recently read a book. It was talking about, actually it's right here. It said how to stop worrying and start living. It ain't really for me, but it's more for individuals around me. But I like to read
Yeah.
different perspectives.
For
And it's
sure.
like, in mind's eye, think about the Statue of Liberty. All right, everybody like, man, oh, it's just my thoughts, and this is just an exercise to understand that you control what you see, what you
Most
experience, what you
definitely.
think, what you feel. You control it,
Hmm.
and it talks about you cannot hold nothing but one thought in your head at a time. Says so. Lean back in your chair, close your eyes, think about the Statue of Liberty, right? And it said, now think about the tasks that you got to do before your wife get home.
Hmm.
You can't think about both of those at the same time.
Can't happen.
What he was trying to say is that what you perceive in your mind at that moment should, number one, dispel any kind of other worrisome thought. So you can choose your program. You can choose to think positive.
Yeah.
You can act in positivity. You can
Yeah.
choose violence.
Yeah.
You know, it's those things that we tell and wire ourselves to think and believe.
Yeah.
And and I'm gonna give you your flowers while you're here on the show, is that you dare to believe that you can create thought matter into physical matter and representation.
Most
And with
definitely.
you doing so, and that's what you're gonna find out when this episode released. There are gonna be a couple of other individuals that also think the same thing, but you got to have this unwavering belief in self, which you so eloquently stated today. But it's the dialogue that you've had over the years with yourself,
Myself.
and then you're helping inspire others. Number one, you talking about the young lady and individuals that come in your office trying to start a business. You get to know them. You get to the core of who that individual is. The exercise you just now did with me. That's powerful, bro. Like that's powerful. And it wasn't even about the business part.
Yeah.
This is
But it
you.
is. It ain't, but it is. You see what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
it ain't, but it is. Yeah,
See,
yeah.
see, that's the initial. That's the thing about it. You know what I'm saying? The business is always the byproduct. The success is the byproduct. Money is a byproduct. You know what I'm saying? So the things that we're chasing the wrong things. You know what I'm saying? Those things that you're chasing are not to be chased. Those things are the byproduct of aligning in a certain way. You know what
Mm.
I'm saying? You operating in your frequency is on a certain level. You know what I'm saying? And so that's how you attract. You don't chase anything. You know what I'm saying? I always tell my clients, I say, man, anything that you're chasing, what
Elevate.
is actually happening? It's trying to get away from you. So you're never going to catch it. So that's not the mindset. The mindset has to be, I need to become so I can attract.
Boy, what you talking about, man? That's some Earl Nightingale, Dale Carnegie
Yeah.
stuff right there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Go
Yeah.
ahead. And I'm with you. You got to
It
elevate
is.
the level of frequency. So if you want in this business, you want this house, this car, this opportunities, you need to raise and elevate your frequency to match that. Now you become a
Most
magnet.
definitely. Yep.
Yeah, you become a man, bro. We really got to talk about that. But let me get into
Yes, sir.
uh
Let's do it.
these last three questions with
Okay.
Ken. Hey, I
Let's
love it,
do it.
man. What is the worst advice you've ever heard or received? Not best, but the worst advice you've ever heard or received. You got time to think on it.
Worst advice.
That the mainstream take and they run with it, but you're like, nah, that ain't really quite how it should be.
I would say around the idea, the notion that to be successful, you have to work hard.
Go ahead.
That's that in itself is a trap. Because if you think about it, the people that work the hardest is the ones who have the least amount of money or any of the things that you chase. So, and the
Time.
ones who have the most of it, the
Yep.
perception is that they don't do a whole lot.
Yeah.
So how does that even make sense? You
Mm.
know, and so the idea is that that's not how you make money. Money is not generated from working hard. And then for the ones who do think that, that's the reason why again you're chasing money. You're working for money. The goal of making money is to attract money.
I
Money is an energy. And
I
so
agree.
we are worshiping the wrong thing. We put too much value on a piece of paper that is worth nothing. I can take $100 bill right now and burn it up. It's nothing. You know what I'm saying? It's the value that we put on the $100 bill
Mm,
that make it something.
mm. Ladies and gentlemen,
So
you heard.
it's these things that we have been told along the way. Sometimes it's from our parents, some of the closest people to us. They necessarily didn't mean anything wrong, trying
Yep.
to show you the right way, but just
Yep.
didn't know better themselves.
Yeah.
You know, and so as an adult, and as you continue to raise your frequency, then you have to be more aware of some things that I need to unlearn to relearn.
Mm. Jay, I like it, man. I love it. Question number 2. If you could send a message to your younger self 10 years ago, what would you say and why?
I would say I would have told myself it's going to be okay. I would told myself that. I would tell myself
Mm.
that I had nothing to worry about. I would tell myself the thoughts I wasn't crazy. The things that could go through your mind when you are trying to create something that is not present. You have people who think the world of you, who are your supporters, but just don't see it. And they're always gonna sow that seed of doubt. Yeah, maybe you should go get that job. Maybe you should go do this. Maybe, and those things depending on, how much you value what they say can impact you. Or it could be some things where I'm just another transparent moment. I even had to disassociate myself or unlearn things
Mm.
that even my mom and my
Yeah.
parents taught me.
That's a real
Don't
conversation
it
right there, man.
doesn't make them bad people.
Right.
It's just the reality of where God has me at, with the reality of what life really is. And you did the best you could do. And so that's kind of so I would say that.
Their point of understanding at that moment. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was there, man, me and you can actually have a long talk about all this stuff, man. Yeah. And then lastly, if you had to start over from scratch today with only the knowledge you have now, what would you do first or what would you do differently?
Um I think today, if I had to start over today, I probably could do it a whole lot faster, if anything, because starting initially, um, I didn't have the knowledge. If I'm coming back with the knowledge, I think that only thing I wouldn't really do anything different. I would just apply the tools of the day that would have helped me scale. I spent a lot of
Gotta do it.
resources and time and training into people who just didn't really see the vision that I wanted to build this conglomerate team with and do these different things with. Where nowadays, uh, I can do it all with AI. I can do, not all of it, but I can do a significant amount of it with AI and automations and workflows and all of these different tools of today.
Man, man. Well, look, Jay, I'm not gonna hold your time much long, brother, man. But today, audience, I hope you guys take note. I hope you guys really paid attention to what we were saying. And Jay, I'm gonna ask you, but I'm gonna put this at the bottom of my show notes. Where can the people find you on social, or what's the best way for individuals to get in contact with you for your consulting services?
Yeah, I would say you can find me on social at Jay Tolbert on all platforms. There, you can find any of my businesses from Euphoria Kitchen and Cocktails. You can find it on all platforms. Our consulting company, Cornbread Consulting Firm. Our website is cornbreadconsults.com, but that's all over social media and stuff as well. So yeah, I would say you just pop in Jay Tolbert. You'll navigate and find me somewhere through through
Now,
some
I'm
of these
pretty sure
businesses.
you ain't gonna be hard to find. You can literally say, Google me.
Yes, sir.
No, well, I would definitely have that in the show notes. But Jay, I appreciate the time. I appreciate you trusting in me to have this conversation in front of my viewers today, man.
Yes, sir.
I
Yes, sir.
I really
Appreciate for
do
having me.
appreciate it. Yeah, man. And then we're gonna link up. We
Let's
gonna
do it.
definitely link up. And thanks for dropping these gems. And I'm gonna get educated on some of the things that you do. So I can definitely link up with what you got going on, man. I love it. I
Yes, sir.
appreciate your time. Until
Yes,
next
sir.
time, viewers, this is Talk with Ken. We'll catch you in the next episode. Peace.